Recognition, power, and influence is your birthright, and this podcast shows you how to get there. Welcome to episode number 232. Today's episode is an interview that I did with Ashley Phillips. Ashley is the author of a book that actually comes out this week called The Teacher's Guide to Changing Careers: Stories and Step-by-Step Exercises to Find the Right Role and Build a Network to Start a New Life. As we close out the school year in 2024, I can't help but think about transitions and hope for the future. And when Ashley reached out to me for this interview, I thought it was absolutely perfect timing, in particular for those of you who are looking to make a career transition from something that might no longer be working for you. I have a lot of clients that will switch industries, and it's very difficult to kind of wrap your brain around what that's going to take, especially when you don't have that deep subject matter expert knowledge. Ashley successfully transitioned from a career of 7 years teaching high school to now in the role of Vice President of Commercial Effectiveness at OSG. In this interview, she tells us not only how she did that transition, but how you can begin to make that transition for yourself. We also examine the role of women, in particular in a career path that is dominated by women, and how sometimes that particular career path can actually work against us as we begin to think about transitioning into more male-dominated environments. All right, let's get started. Welcome to Women Changing Leadership. I am your host, Stacy Mayer, and I teach you how to get promoted, get paid, and bring your whole self to the leadership table. I am on a mission to change organizations from the C-suite out, because women are the new face of leadership, and we are doing it on our terms. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Women Changing Leadership. I'm your host, Stacy Mayer, and super excited, as always, to be here with you again this week. So I have a really special guest on my podcast, and as we were meeting before today's episode, I was like, oh, this is actually really ironic. I think that there is 8 days left in the school year for my children who are both in first and third grade. And it has been a month. It has been quite a month. I actually had my kids say, there are 8 days left in the school year. And some of the kids were like, "Yay," and some of the kids were like, I'm sad. And some of the kids were like, I don't care. And there's just this feeling of basically chaos. Lots of people feeling different things, teachers included, everybody sort of feeling exhausted. And that is not why I had Ashley on this podcast. We booked this a couple of months ago, and it has been, for me, I was mostly fascinated with her transition from teaching into the corporate world. And that's really what we're going to talk about today. But in the pre-production part of today's episode, we were sort of discussing the system of education and how it sort of accepts this end of the year burnout, and how, I'm actually not surprised that teachers are kind of all over the map. And she was even saying this is, for a lot of teachers, they've been counting down since the last 100 days of the school year. And sort of there's this systemic problem in our education system that sort of sets teachers up for this level of burnout. And that's the work that Ashley specifically does with her clients, which we're also going to get into. But then I'm also super fascinated about that transition into the corporate world. I have so many members of my personal family that are in education and come to me just like, it's Stacy, it's different. You don't understand. And I'm like, well, I understand aspects of it. So I want to get expert Ashley on here to kind of talk about how she did her own journey and then what she does specifically with clients to help them make that career transition. But Ashley, thank you so much for being here. I'm so excited to have you.
Yeah, thanks, Stacy. I'm looking forward to today's conversation. It's going to be really great.
So let me give you a little bit formal introduction of Ashley, and then we'll dive into the conversation. So she was a high school teacher for 7 years, and she wanted out for many reasons, but she eventually got her big break over the last 10 years and has built a new career from the entry level to being the vice president at OSG. Today, she mentors teachers to help with their career pivot. And while she doesn't have any interest in quitting her corporate role, she has so many ways that she's helping and supporting. And she has a really incredible free guide, which we can talk about, resources that she is giving to teachers who want to make this career pivot, and has really kind of dedicated this, I guess, side hustle to helping more and more women achieve their career goals as well. So thank you, Ashley. Let's start with your own personal secrets to success. How were you this resilient? How did you figure this out?
I mean, there were many nights where I sat alone in my little apartment in the Bay Area thinking, what the heck am I going to do? How am I going to make this work? Because I'm no stranger to the roller coaster that was tech. I've been laid off, had to lay people off. I've had to find other roles. And so I think one of the secrets to success when I started to really reflect was I truly did not understand the power of networking. And so when I thought, okay, how did I get all of my jobs? And how am I going to help other women, other teachers who want to grow a career? How am I going to help them get a job? And Stacy, I'm not kidding. I taught at 5 different school districts. And now I've been at probably about 5 different companies as I built my career. And all of them but one came from networking. It came from me putting myself out there, showing up at an event, sweaty palms, rapid heartbeat, not knowing anyone, or picking up the phone saying, hey, I need help. I'm looking for my next role. Do you know anyone? And the secret has been resilience in networking and not letting the guilt of leaving teaching or not letting the embarrassment of wanting a next role or needing a next role get in the way of asking for help and reaching out to people around me to make that happen.
I want to share a story with you that came to mind of my kindergarten teacher at our school that was so fascinating to me. I was like shocked that she said this. So she is a younger teacher. I think she graduated with her, I don't know, there's multiple certificates that you guys have. I can't even believe how much education. And she graduated with yet another certificate. And we're at the parent meeting at the beginning of the year. And she basically tells us that she's going to be there for maybe 2 more years and that she has other aspirations in life and that she's going to do this after that. And I was like, are you kidding me? How are you allowed to tell me this? Are you supposed to? And I'm not saying this in negative. I'm saying this as pure, profound, like bowing down to her, like, oh my God, you're amazing. You're a goddess. Because for her to look at her kindergarten parents and to say, teaching is not my life, like that guilt that you mentioned of leaving this profession, that you're supposed to dedicate your whole life to these children. And for her to say that, I was like, yes, you do have other things going on. And that's amazing. And I'm fully committed to your children for the next 2 years, right? Like that's so great.
But she's an anomaly, though. Like there are so many teachers that reach out and it's almost like a dirty secret there is to tell me, and like I am a safe space, like I am of no judgment, like I also left. But what I ultimately tell them is there is no trophy at the end of your life. There is no billionaire handing you $30,000 to retire comfortably. There's nothing at the end. And so to be this sacrificial lamb for this system that is leaving you burnout and unhealthy and heart palpitations and hair falling out and all these things that teachers are coming to me with stressors, you don't have to stay. Like no job would encourage you to stay if you were feeling that stressed and that burnout. And so I have to tell them, like, you have to get over that. I wanted to use the word stigma in the original title of the book, just because, like, to your point, there is that stigma of you're supposed to give everything that you are to this profession. And I'm of the opinion that you don't have to. You have a right to happiness, just like everyone else protected under the Constitution, right? And so I think that teachers should just need to go for it if that's where they are at the end of the day.
Yeah. And I could tell also that that's part of her process is proclaiming that to us. It's like the more that we can say it out loud, that I have other things going on, it gives ourselves permission to actually pursue those other careers. Like I have more to do with my career and we're just sort of keeping it as a secret. And I'm like, all the other parents are like, heck yeah, I want that for you.
Yeah, finally, the work-life balance in corporate is trickling down to teachers. You can also finally have work-life balance, whereas, in corporate, we only got that, just during COVID. So
yeah, you're right. You're right.
Around for everyone else too.
Yeah. So speaking of work-life balance, I was thinking about this idea of being burned out as being the worst possible time to interview. I mean, I don't actually agree with that. I think there's ways that we can work through it. And what I'm curious about from your perspective is, how do you, when you don't feel at your best, when you are exhausted, when you feel like you're maybe emotionally giving up, I have to switch careers because I have to, right? I'm being forced to. This wasn't my plan. I thought I would stay in teaching until retirement. How do you kind of push through that or get through that or find resources to work through that so that you can begin even thinking about a career pivot? I imagine that many of them, vice president is like, what? Yeah, sure, that'd be great, but I'm not even there yet.
It is a challenge. And I would say that I actually have an entire couple of chapters in the book dedicated to this method, because if you're already burnt out, it is so easy to just shut down completely. Because especially in an economy like this, like looking for a job can feel like a full-time job. And so one of the things that I tell teachers, because they fall into this trap of desperate, I'm so desperate to leave, right, that I go after everything. Throwing spaghetti at a wall and seeing what sticks is very dangerous for your mental health and your sanity and your drive. And so what I coach teachers to do is pause and do some actual deep self-reflection. Like I have teachers run through exercises of what energizes you at work, what is draining you at work. When you close your eyes and you visualize your future job, what is it that you're actually doing every day? You wake up, you sit in front of a computer, or you go into an office, and what is it that you do all day long? Who do you talk to? Who do you engage with? What is expected of you? I have them go through their own personal SWOT analysis. My career's been in enablement, so a lot of my coaching, sales coaching has trickled into coaching teachers, but I have them go through a SWOT analysis of their strengths and what are some of the opportunities, what are their growth areas, right? And so we take all of that information and then I show them, these are buckets of job titles. Go read these job titles and what matches. And when you know that matches, then you need to build your personal brand around that. But you can answer, this is what I'm good at, and I know this to be true. These are the jobs that are a good fit for me. I can see myself being happy doing this. And then you've crafted your story and your brand around that. Then the networking, the applying, the going after it is so much easier because you've narrowed your focus. And now all of a sudden, you're not trying to eat an elephant at once. You're just eating it one bite at a time.
Yeah.
That's the advice I give of like, you have to just first figure out what do you want to do? Because if you go after everything and you apply to everything on Indeed and you've uploaded your application hundreds of times, you are going to give up, because I would. And so you just figure out, what do you want to go after and narrow your focus so you have the energy and the effort to do something small every day at that goal of getting that particular job or job.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, because it really brings you back to the present moment and sort of says, hey, I'm moving forward, I'm taking steps, but then you can also see the results faster too, because when you're just sort of throwing everything out there, then even if you do get an interview, you still feel so exhausted or confused or like, wait, what was that one? What did I tell that person? How am I supposed to be in this interview versus that one? I really like that. So tell us the title of your book, and then you mentioned a couple of chapters, so I want to just talk about that process for a minute. And also for those of you who are listening and you're on the edge of your seats wanting to buy the book so that you can figure that out.
Yeah, sure. It's called The Teacher's Guide to Changing Careers. And it is more of a guide. The way that the book is formatted is, of course, it's stories. People resonate with stories. And so I'll tell a little bit about my experience. I'll tell what happened. I definitely tell people what didn't work. So I tell people, don't repeat these things because you probably won't get a good result. But then I go through exercises at the end of every chapter and help people reflect. It starts with reflection. It starts with a couple of chapters that I call the journey out. How do you get out of teaching? And so you go through all those exercises, and then you get to what you could kind of think of as a section 2, where you're actually setting yourself up for success. You're setting your future you up for success. And that's that, what is the job I can do? What types of companies are even out there? What industries are there? And then what does it mean to work in the telecom industry or the tech industry? What does that even mean, right? And so exercises to figure that out for yourself and figure out what is a good fit. And then the last section is actually ready. You're going to go after it. You've built a brand. You have a story. You're networking. You're outreaching. And yeah, it covers resumes because we have to, and I don't like them personally, but it's there. It's part of it. And so those are kind of the 3 sections that I just walk teachers through to be able to, at the end of the road, be having these interviews and be going after and pursuing their new career.
Yeah, I love that. And now that you're sitting as vice president in your 5th corporate job since you left teaching, what are some of the things that you really miss about teaching and being able to do?
There is really only one thing. At 10 years later, when I look back, I do miss the students. I actually really, really do. I have a former student who's in the NBA. He was in the playoffs. His team isn't anymore this year, but there were. I've watched students be in the NFL. I've watched students play in symphonies. I've also watched students who are average people like me who just go into the workforce after. And I miss the students. I do miss the connection. I mean, high school is so fun. I watched boys at the beginning in September still playing with action figures and Legos start to become young men by the end of their freshman year and have their driver's permit. And they change so much. And I've watched young women grow and do the same and come in and still want more of the Barbie lifestyle and become young people by the end of their freshman year. You watch them learn to drive and learn to figure out, who am I going to be? How do I fit into this thing called society? I do miss talking with students, watching them grow, helping them apply to college or trade school or whatever they're going to do. That's the one thing that I actually do miss is the students. The rest of it, good on that.
Yeah, I love that because that's a reminder. I tell people that we can find other ways. And it sounds like with your coaching and mentoring that you're able to really give back and connect and watch your clients grow and change. And so we find other ways to continue feeding what drove us to do that work in the first place. But now let's talk about some of the things that you have been able to accomplish since you've moved into the corporate world.
Yeah. I mean, when I left teaching, I thought, if I could just pay my bills and be independent, I have made it. Like, that's it. That was my goal. That was the threshold. That was all I needed in life. I was just tired of being depressed and burnout and feeling broken in so many ways, and especially financial. I mean, we are not our jobs. We are not, right? But teachers get sucked into that more than other professions. And so at the end of the day, when you kind of also don't know who you are anymore because you leave, you really do feel depleted. You're like, well, if I'm not a teacher, what am I? Because I also don't have money, and I also don't live in a nice apartment, or I live with my parents still. And there's all these negative things in your life. And so at least that's my story. I'm sure there are teachers that are very happy, but that's my story. And so for folks that were like me, I thought, if I could just be financially stable, if I could just go on vacation and go out to dinner and have fun, my life would just be better. And what was incredible is I hit that goal in less than a year. I didn't realize how underpaid teachers were. I didn't realize what a grind the schedule was to go from study hall at 7 a.m. to not getting home till 9 o'clock at night because I had to coach middle school basketball, and how exhausted I was. And so some of the things I've accomplished just is number one is a happier life. I'm happy with who I am. I was able to find a healthy relationship in my personal life. I talked to my family more. I was able to actually go do things with my friends because I could also pay to go on a float trip, whereas before I didn't have $75, and so all of these things about my personal and social life got better. I was finally out of debt after a couple of years. I mean, I actually paid off my car. I paid off my student loan. And so that happened about 3 or 4 years in, that my debt and my credit score completely changed. And then it's like 5 years in, I was thinking, now what am I going to do? Like, I can actually do this. Like, I do belong in corporate America. Like, I do have the skills to be here and thrive. And then I thought, well, now I'm really just going to get after it because I'm a
yeah.
So that's really what changed too. And then I started really doubling down on networking events. And actually, I was listening to some of your other podcasts talking about telling your story. And a lot of it is telling your story to say, I'm ready for the next step. And to be that. And that is something that I took on about 5 years in. And that's been the change to get to that senior to director to VP, in the last 5 years of my career.
Right. Oh, so good. What about some of the ceilings that are in place? I have a cousin who is principal at a school. I think that's what she does. And some of the challenges that she faces are the lack of openings and, there's just like nowhere to go. So when you're thinking about how your ability to, in 5 years, to go from, you said like senior manager to vice president, is that what you did in the last 5 years?
Yeah, I say senior, but it was a principal consultant role.
Yeah. Wow.
That is senior.
Yeah. All the way. Yeah. That's great.
And then from there, I went to director. And then at OSG, I was director. And then from there at OSG, I got that promotion to VP.
Exactly. See, listen, that's why I was kind of pointing it out, because I love talking about titles and really thinking about the journey and what can happen so fast for you once you have that clarity and direction. So that's fantastic. I see that all the time, women leapfrogging and going from director to VP and figuring it out and having huge amounts of success there. It's not like they're not ready for these roles. It's the mindset around what's possible. So speaking of what's possible, maybe we can kind of look at it from that way. Have you seen in the teaching structure, because I would think that a lot of clients, and tell me if I'm wrong, there could be the client that's just like, I'm out and I want a different career path. But in at least my family members, what they'll do first is look for job satisfaction within. So they're like looking for more of an administrative role. So move out of the directly teaching children every day into being a principal. And then you sort of get to principal, and then it's like, where do I go from here? And so is there any movement internally that you found, or was it just like, I don't know. I'd love to hear it. No, she's like shaking. Maybe I shouldn't have even answered this question. I'm asking the wrong person. Well, and that's sort of been my observation too. It's like, even just talking to people, it's like, well, you're just sort of trying to take something and make it work versus the acknowledgement that it's not working. So maybe let's talk about that. If the answer is just really no, then why? What happens specifically in education where that becomes more difficult?
I think it's a numbers game. There's only so many principals. I mean,
right.
I remember as being younger, probably around college age, my uncle, talking to him a lot about careers, because I've always admired my uncle. He's always been very successful in the pharmaceutical industry. And, Uncle John always had it together with business. And so did my parents and other aunts and uncles. But I just remember there was something special about my relationship with my uncle when it came to talking careers. And not dissimilar to the kindergarten teacher you were just telling me about, who said, hey, I have a plan to get out and go do something else. I had always told myself, well, I'm going to start teaching because I have to have money, because I have to pay bills. And then I'm going to get my master's degree while I'm teaching. And then once I have that and I've taught for 10 years, I'm going to get out. I'm going to go professor, or I'm going to be a corporate trainer. I'm going to do something else, because I did not want to be a principal. Because after seeing principals, it's a lot like just the headache part of teaching, because a lot of teachers love the actual act of teaching. That's why they
right.
And so it's like, well, if you do something else, you're taking away the one thing that actually is giving them satisfaction and gratification in their day to day. And it's like, if you don't want the pencil whipping and the angry parents and the discipline and kind of the administrative part of it, you've actually taken away the one thing in exchange for maybe a little bit more money, like maybe, especially if you're just an assistant principal. And so it's a numbers game. There's just not enough roles to move up. And so I even I work with a couple of principals too that are looking to get out. When you get into corporate, it's just like your world can just
more
explode. It can go anywhere. It's just like, it's just getting that first job, and you can move up so much more and so much quicker and faster, because there are tiered levels. Whereas in teaching, you start as a teacher, you can get more money at 15 credit hours of a master's, a little bit more at your master's, a little bit halfway to doctoral, and then your doctor. You've got 5 steps, and each step is only like a couple of $1,000s, each stair step. And then the other way is just years. So it's kind of like saying, I want to be a NASCAR driver. It's like, great. There's like, 25 of them or something? I mean, I don't know NASCAR.
Total.
But that's a finite number. And it's like, cool. Like, probably a lot of people want that. There's just not enough. And so, if you're really sitting there at the end of the day teaching, figuring out how do I find more, you probably should look to try and train in corporate America. There are more than 800 LMSs. So if you want to train people, you can train people. There are coaching and enablement tools. There are hundreds of those. There are performance management and mentoring tools in HR. You can go there. Compliance needs training. So if you love the act of teaching, looking for
a lot
in is probably a good place to start. But if your answer is administration, you're actually giving up what you love, which is the teaching and coaching part. And so thousands of different job titles outside of teaching you can pursue, whereas assistant principal or principal, there may only be 1 to 3 at any given campus.
I was just thinking about something else, this conversation that me and my daughter had about women as teachers and that there are more women who are teachers. And I'll just explain the story because I found it interesting. She said to me that in one of the classrooms, there was going to be a male head teacher and a male assistant teacher, but they didn't want to put the male head teacher and the male assistant teacher. They wanted to spread the men out and keep, of course, we have lots of female head teachers and female assistant teachers. That's everywhere. And so the idea was we can't have 2 male teachers together. And so then my daughter put the logical connection together to say, in a positive side, she was like, teaching is one of the professions that women rule. That's what she said. She was like, we are teachers. And she looks up to teachers. So she's like, this is amazing. This is like the place where there are more women than men. And I was like, okay, that's true. But then my brain went to, oh my God, and we're watching these women burned out and stressed and all the things. And I'm like, this is not good. But I did ask her, I said, are there any other professions that there are either more women than men or equal? And she said, well, doctors. And I was like, oh, okay. And she said, yeah, there are equal number of doctors that are women and men. And I was like, okay, great. Like, at least that's what she thinks and believes. And she's seen that, I guess. I'd have to look at the exact numbers, but maybe it's true or not. I don't know. But
that could just be.
Oh, exactly. That's just her perspective. But I was like, oh, okay, cool. And so there are, different things that she's kind of working through. It just sort of made me think about the perpetuation of that, like what I was saying with the burnout. Unfortunately, I feel like, yes, while it's great that we have this profession that we rule, there's this dark side to this profession. And, I think of motherhood kind of similarly, where, we take on this role of mothering and what comes not just automatically, but as a result sometimes is stress and doing it all and having to hold everybody together and all the dark sides of that. So I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
Well, the first thing I want to say is good on your daughter for seeing doctors as being equal, because the number one thing is just seeing yourself.
Yeah, totally.
So whether it's real or imagined.
Yeah, I was like, great.
I'm a doctor, and I think that's wonderful, right? So
yeah.
We'll start there on that. But she's not wrong about teachers being ruled by women. It's more than 75%. And I think it comes back to it's a service industry. So, and you talk about motherhood. Anytime where there is a caregiver or a service industry role, I think you'll find it's dominated by women. Unfortunately, the statistic that goes right there with it is the teacher penalty pay gap. And so we already have gender inequality in pay in corporate America. But not only have we funneled women into this profession of teaching because it's natural to us and we're supposed to, and women can raise the kids. So we put them there. And then I think like back in the 70s, I think if you and I were to graduate the same and you went into corporate America and I went into teaching, I would only make about 6% less than you in your job. You fast forward into the mid 2000s, I'm going to now we graduate the same year. Stacy, you go into corporate America. I go into teaching. I'm going to make more than 26% less than you. I mean, that's huge. That is a big chunk of money at the end of every year when you think about, can you put away money for retirement? Can you contribute to your kiddos 529? Can you go on a vacation and be with your family and have fun? Are you making sacrifices if you have to buy new shoes because kiddo had a blowout and the shoes are gone? And now groceries are impacted for that week. 26% is a lot. And so not only do women struggle to make equal pay with men in corporate America, if you're a female and you're in teaching, you're making even less than the wage gap of women in corporate America. And so that just, again, we talked about, in this scenario of teaching, parents aren't wrong. They have a right to advocate for their kiddos. Students are going to feel how they feel, and they have a right to own their own learning and how they feel, whether we agree with them or not. We have to work through that. Teachers can feel how they feel. But when you're asking them to stay in this system where they can't even make ends meet, and retirement means still being a sub, retirement means still working another job, that's not right. Like, as a country, we should support our teachers enough that they can retire and not have to have a second job to support themselves. And when you make 26% less, that's why so many of our teachers are still, again, in the service industry, and they are bartenders and servers and waitresses, and they're working side hustles and they're exhausted.
Yeah. I remind people the best way that you can really help other people is to get yourself in a position of influence and power yourself. And it sounds like you've really done that. And then now you're able to give back and you're able to really connect and help other women. So let's talk a little bit more about your work and your book and some prizes along the way. So we talked about the benefits now that you've transitioned into the corporate world, but what are some of the benefits now that you've become a different type of teacher in your life?
Yeah, it's the free time to do and learn more. I mean, I think it's also the personality of a teacher to have a heart of service and love to watch other people thrive and grow. It's also been nice to have extra time in my day where I'm not having to work a second job. I mean, I was that as a teacher. I was a bartender, waitress in the summer trying to make extra cash, but now I don't have to do that. And so now my time is when someone reaches out and says, hey, I too want to leave, or my sister, my mother, my so-and-so, can you talk to them? Can you help them? They want to leave. I can give that time back. And it's still a balance. I still protect my personal time with my family, but I do have hours every week that I can give to helping other people. Because the other sad thing is there's a lot of people that will take teachers' money for resumes and coaching, and it's hundreds or thousands of dollars that they already don't have. And so what's nice is to be able to kind of coach them through and give them the exercises, have them go do it, come back to me, and just kind of guide them through and then get them into the interview process and get them into a new role. It feels really good. And that is something that, because of the job I have now, I do have time for that.
Yeah.
It is a really fun give back.
So we probably touched on this a little bit, but I like to ask the question more directly. Why do you personally feel motivated to have a voice at the table?
In a modern world, I don't think you can truly be successful without diversity. I mean, the copy and paste type of thought of the same kind of leader with the same kind of thoughts, with the same kind of this and the same role. And I know you do a lot of great work about, women leading from the C-suite and making change from there. I love being a change catalyst because I also feel a responsibility to take that on, because there are not a lot of women who have a seat at the table in any given industry, in any given company. Even my company is sorely imbalanced. And so if I don't do it, nobody will, and that's part of that. You have to just breathe through your imposter syndrome. You have to breathe through the anxiety. You have to breathe through the sweaty palms and just not be afraid to speak up, because if I don't, nobody is in that meeting, in that room. And so I think it's important to just have diversity so that you can truly thrive as a company, as an organization, or whatever goal you're trying to accomplish. You're so much more productive when you can see it from multiple perspectives, especially if a company is trying to, as a B2C company or a B2B company, your buyer doesn't look the same as you. They don't act the same as you. They don't care about the same things as you. And if you don't have diversity of thought to make your processes better, to make your content better, to make your conversations better, you're missing out on servicing and helping a lot more people. And I don't believe you can be as productive as you could be if you had a diverse team where people had the ability to speak up and say, but that's not what it's like for me, and include that, hear that and then include it. Don't just listen to it, but act on it and do something with it.
Yeah. As you were talking, I really believe the transition for a teacher to transition to eventually become vice president is the requirement to do that is finding your voice. Like you said, pick a lane, figure out what you're going to go for and go for it, is part of that process. So in order to be successful, in order to sit in the seat that you have, you had to figure out how to interject yourself, how to have that voice along the way, how to be clear about what you bring to the table, and then to find opportunities that were willing and open to that, and to trust that that fit is out there. And so I think that that is such a great example of how we're going to change the leadership table, is to bring ourselves to the leadership table and to really start to unpack, do your exercises, really figure out what our strengths are, do the SWOT analysis, understand how we're going to move forward, what we're going to get into, and why we matter, why our leadership matters. I'm so hopeful having this conversation. I think it feels like so doable. I think we can all do this.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, for me, it was enablement. Like there were enough parallels from what I loved about teaching that brought me into enablement, because I was also an athlete. So I'm very competitive by nature, and sales kind of lends itself towards that. It's faster paced. It can change a lot. You have to make adjustments quickly, like no different than, like I said, when I was an athlete, I had to do all those things. And then, of course, I love the coaching and the mentoring and the teaching aspect of teaching, and I get to do that with sales. And so when you do hone in on what am I really good at, and you put your talent behind that, and then you give the time to invest in yourself, like I said, you figure out what are your opportunities of growth, you can speak up because you are confident in what you're talking about. I don't speak up when it comes to accounting. Like I said, it's my job to speak up in meetings, but if it's about accounting, like my lips are zipped.
You're doing good. Like, you're great. Go do that.
Yeah, I'm not bringing any value there. But when it does come to sales processes and the best way to roll out and change management, and how do people comprehend information, and why are you giving them an 80-page OSHA manual when we have lower than high school level installers that are needing to look at this information? Like, that's when I speak up. Like, that's when I use my area of expertise to say, no, these people can't do that, and it's our job to help them be better, and we need to do it this way, and here's why. So like you said, it's not just being loud. It's not just speaking up about everything, but it is, to your point, doing the work and knowing like what value do I bring, and then making sure that you take on the responsibility to speak up where you should.
Yeah. All right. As we close out today, any final words of advice for someone who's looking to transition their career? What do they need to hear from you as we say goodbye?
I'll tell you the same way I ended my book. Like, you are a professional. You belong there. Like, you belong in corporate America. Like, telling yourself, I don't belong here, telling yourself, I don't know if I can do it, I'm not sure. You can put in the work and you can figure out answers to all of those questions. But the first hurdle is just understanding, like, you can do it. Like, you do belong in corporate America. If that's where you want to be, there's a space for you.
Thank you. All right, Ashley Phillips, how can people find you, connect with you, purchase your book, whatever?
So the website is teach with ing on it, teachingcareerchange.com. And you can sign up for the pre-order list to get notified. It's supposed to come out about June 11th. But if you do sign up for that, what I want to give you is Chapter 10. And the reason I'm giving you Chapter 10 is because you don't have to hear just about me. Chapter 10, I interviewed 9 of my acquaintances, friends, people in my network who have also left teaching and got into various roles in corporate America. So some are now project managers, some are now in sales, some are enablement, some are in marketing. And so if you want to hear what else is there and their tips and their advice of how they left and how did they do it, that's all in Chapter 10. So it's a really juicy chapter to really get you motivated and again, beat that drum of I can do this too. So if you sign up there, you'll get that. And then I do a lot of my posting on LinkedIn, because if you're trying to do a career change, you've got to go where the jobs in corporate America is socially. And so you can find me on LinkedIn, either by my name or by the page Teaching Career Change.
So exciting. I can't wait for your book to come out. And I'm really thrilled for all the women that you have helped today. I think that your advice is very transferable, even if you don't have a career in teaching. Being able to understand how to make career pivots, how to stay empowered along the way. I'm so excited to connect with you and know you as well. So thank you, Ashley. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you. This has been great, Stacy. It's been so nice to meet you. I appreciate the opportunity.
Before you go, I have a question for you. Do you know how close you are to your next promotion? Really. Not what your boss has told you, not what you even believe to be true, but have you actually taken the time to sit down, take an assessment, review the 5 categories that it takes to get promoted into senior executive leadership positions, and decided where you fall in each category, and given yourself a ranking on a scale of 1 to 10 of how close you are to getting your next promotion? Have you done this? Well, now's your chance. If that feels interesting to you and you're like, hey, I want to know exactly how close I might actually be, or how far away you might be, and what it's going to take to get you even closer, then I invite you to take my promotability quiz. This is a quiz that I put together with practical tips that actually tell you where you're lacking and where you're winning. What are the areas that you actually need to improve, and not necessarily what your boss is telling you all the time, so that you can take concrete steps towards landing that next promotion and changing the face of the leadership table. Go to yourpromotabilityscore.com to take your free assessment today. Yourpromotabilityscore.com, and let me know how it goes.